Superstar all-rounder Glenn Maxwell joins us from the West Indies with the Super 8 set. No Pakistan, no New Zealand, but England snuck through thanks to the Aussies. It's been a big week between the old foes. Michael Clarke, Aaron Finch and Tim Paine discuss. Plus, the MLC attracting bigger stars than the Big Bash. What can CA do about it? One more time from New York, let's go around the wicket. Hello and welcome to Around the Wicket. I'm Neroli Meadows and we've got a star-studded episode for you coming up as we look ahead to the Super 8s and the T20 World Cup. Aaron Finch is alongside me here in New York, but we need to cross straight to Antigua because Aussie all-rounder Glenn Maxwell is joining us. Maxie, thanks so much for your time ahead. It's such a big part of the tournament. I've got to say though, by the looks of social media, a lot of family time, a lot of beach time. You guys have cruised through the Super 8 phase. I feel like you're just having the time of your life as a team. Is that what it is inside the camp?
Yeah, it's been pretty cruisy here. We've played some really good cricket. We've been able to, I suppose, switch on at the right times and enjoy what I suppose the Caribbean has to offer and be able to relax. You can obviously see the tent behind me here, which is Logan's blackout tent. But yeah, it's nice to have the family here. It's nice to be able to share, I suppose, the experience of this. But we've got a couple of big games coming up, and the guys are certainly well aware of what's in front of them.
And a big game up against Afghanistan next. I mean, it doesn't get much harder than this in conditions that will, I guess, deteriorate as the tournament goes on. And I guess, again, as a spin-friendly team, I guess. So it's going to be a challenge for you.
Well, I think we've got Bangladesh first. I really hope I've got that right.
You have.
To be fair, this tournament, we've been here, there and everywhere. So Fiji could have been right. It could have been Afghanistan, and it could have been on a completely different island, the one that we're at. So it's been certainly difficult to navigate. I think, especially with two countries, a lot of different internal flights. You can see this teams have been sort of stuck on the tarmac for a couple of hours, had their flights changed at the last minute. Late night games followed by early morning flights. It's been a bit chaotic, but to sort of, I suppose, get out the other side of that and be in these Super 8s, I think everyone can sort of almost relax and get back to, I suppose, normal resumption of, I suppose, the high pressure games, knowing that we've got to basically go through almost unscathed for the rest of this. And we know that Bangladesh and Afghanistan and India, all three world-class spin units, and we know what we're going to face over the next couple of games. That the way the wickets have played, they've been so totally different on each island. It almost feels like you've got to get used to a new set of conditions every time you land somewhere.
I think Finch is just excited about Afghanistan, as we all are, as I'm sure you are, Maxie. Have you gone and watched your highlights of the ODI World Cup from last year just to pump yourself up a little bit ahead of this one?
No, I haven't recently. I certainly watched it a fair bit during the summer and during the IPL, but no, not recently. I think probably the other thing is I relate that innings to a lot of pain, and I think that's my initial thought of when I go back to it. I was in so much agony at the back end of that, so I don't really want to reflect too much on it. I want to sort of be injury-free and nice and relaxed and hopefully pretty fluid, I suppose, in the next few games. So, yeah, hopefully there's a few mental scars from the opposition side, but for me, I know I've got to go out there and start my innings again. And as I said, get used to new conditions that we've faced pretty much in every game. I don't think we've had two wickets that have played the same or looked the same. So you're not sure what you're going to get when you turn up to the grounds, and the training wickets are completely different to what we've been seeing out in the middle as well. So it's certainly made it difficult to prepare for what you're going to see out in the middle. So hopefully we're just the team that's quicker to adapt.
It's great to hear you be so upbeat at the moment. What about your form specifically on the field? Obviously, tough IPL, not the start that you would have wanted from a World Cup perspective. How are you feeling about your own form out there in the middle?
Yeah, still feeling really good. I've been hitting the ball pretty well, but as I said, it's just been really hard to, I suppose, get that rhythm and momentum. You've seen our openers go out there and absolutely pump it all over the place, and then in the middle order, it obviously been quite difficult to adjust. And the only one that's probably throughout the tournament that consistently has been smashing is Stoyan, and he's just been outstanding. And what he's been able to do is get himself into his innings, give himself a bit of time, and then branch out from there. And it's been pretty impressive to watch. And just the calmness that he's exuded, I suppose, throughout the rest of the order. And he did it against Oman, picked his time beautifully, and did it again against England, and as well against Scotland. So to have those guys below me gives me a lot of confidence, and knowing that I've actually got a bit of time to get myself into the tournament, and it's not just about, I suppose, what the top four do. We've got some real quality below us, and it's a nice position to be in. That I don't feel like I've really fully hit my straps. Had pretty well against England, but don't feel like I've fully hit my straps yet. But I know that it's not far away. It feels good in the nets, feels good in preparation. And I think when you're out in the middle, when you're picking the ball up well and picking up length well, I think that's probably a good sign that it's not far away. And that's sort of how I feel at the moment.
And one of the features of that Afghanistan 200 that you did get was obviously you had full body cramp, so you couldn't move, but you just stood so still. I've noticed at the start of this tournament, you're moving around the crease a lot, particularly in your first couple of balls. Is that a subconscious thing that you're doing and it's just happening naturally, or is it purely based on the wickets and the opposition?
Probably wickets and opposition. So I'd probably try to get almost fake foot movement going and sort of trying to get some rhythm into the ball. And it's probably a sign of nerves early on in the innings as well. I think it's pretty typical from a lot of batters where they're trying to get their feet moving. They don't want to be static, and certainly I don't want to be too still in my innings. I want to make sure I have some sort of momentum into the ball wherever it might be. And with these wickets playing the way they are, especially in Barbados, you did need some sort of momentum into the ball and some sort of rhythm going at it. So there was a little bit of that. I think it's probably been a little bit different the other night. I think against Scotland, you could stay pretty still. The wicket was pretty good. And the same thing for, who was the other one? Namibia as well. I think that wicket played really well, and batters could sort of hang back and stay dead still and use the pace of the ball or fire if they needed to. But as I said, there's been so many different conditions wherever you've been going, whichever island you go to. So you just got to be able to be the team that adapts the quickest.
You spoke about the batting depth of Australia as well. The fact that you haven't fired yet, the fact that Mitch Marsh, we haven't seen him go absolutely nuts like we know we can from the skipper. Is it almost a scary proposition for the opposition, do you think, heading towards the pointy end of the tournament?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it still feels like, for me and Mitch, we got a lot of confidence out of that England game for the role we played in that match. So even though it's a small sample size, we still feel like we played our role. We set the innings up for the lower order to then go nuts. Yes, it would have been nice to have both or one of us at the back end, but our role is to, I suppose, adapt and work out the conditions as well as we can. And the opening batters going out there and scoring at over 12, 13 and over can be a bit misleading to how the conditions are. And if we try and go at that rate for the rest of the innings, thinking that's what it's like, we could just, I suppose, throw our wickets away when the conditions weren't like that at all. And I suppose it's for us to adapt and find a way. So we both took a lot of confidence out of those two innings, and we still think that we're going to play a big role, I suppose, heading into these games. And Mitch has been unbelievable over the last couple of years since he's, I suppose, come back into all three formats of the Australian team, especially the test stuff. I think that's probably filtered into the confidence in the other two formats. And watching him go about his work, you always know he's only one or two shots away from basically ruining the game, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing that.
And what has Mitch been like as captain? Obviously, you've had Pat Cummins won the World Cup under his leadership. Mitch, relatively new into the captaincy space. What's that been like, especially when he goes from being someone or everyone's best mate in the team to then having to captain the side and pull the strings out there? Has there been any kind of transition in that regard?
Yeah, you're right, Aaron. I think being the guy that everyone says that he's just everyone's best mate, he's probably the one guy that everyone just absolutely loves unconditionally in the group. And he's been that guy for a long time in this group, being a larrikin, being a guy that sort of is the fun, the barometer that we sort of enjoy with off field. But I think it's probably just toned down a little bit off the field. I think he's still trying to have that change room where everyone's allowed to have their fun, be as individual as they would like to be, and embrace themselves in the games as much as they would like. But I think his calmness on the field has actually been really noticeable. I think there could be a lot of stuff going on in his head that we don't see as players, and he doesn't sort of show it. He was brilliant in that game against England. He captained us really well. He was able to manipulate the bowlers beautifully. And I think coming to these games, it's going to be obviously a different test with three completely different sides to what we've faced. So it's been really good so far. I haven't obviously been captained by him a lot in the past, but what I've seen of him, it's really impressed me.
He's a lot less grumpy than the old skipper too, I can tell you.
Nice little side swap for yourself.
There's a few captains that he's a lot less grumpy than, so there's probably you and another of your panellists. Actually, three of them. There's three of them.
I love it, and they're all coming up too. Nice little segue there, Maxie. As we wrap it up, I just want to know, have you received any text messages from any of your English mates over the last week? It's been a big week between the old enemy, thanks to Joshy Hazelwood.
Yeah, just a couple of texts here and there, but yeah, it was actually quite funny. There was a lot of chat out in the ground. It was like, oh, are we doing this? Are we seriously going to let England back in? And no, it was pretty an interesting game because we just didn't bat that well at the start. It just felt like our rhythm was all out. When I got out, it was at an interesting sort of stage. Heady's back was sort of flaring up a little bit. And it could have gone each way, but as I said, Stoyne came out there and absolutely pumped it all over the place, and sort of the game beyond doubt. And there was almost that interesting part when they dropped the catch off Tim David when there was, I think, 3 off 3 required, and when it gets down to the last 2 or 3 balls, who knows what happens? But luckily enough, we go over the line, and luckily enough for England. They got through, but I heard it was absolutely chaos. I think they were at this hotel that we're at now, and there was a fair bit of panic going around. Guys were booking flights, cancelling flights, booking flights again, trying to get hotel rooms. Would have been funny to be a fly on the wall and watching that.
I'll tell you what, though, he's just confirmed that there were conversations out there in the middle. Glenn Maxwell, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it, and all the best for the Super 8s. Hopefully the semi-finals, hopefully the final. Maybe we'll check back in with you on Around the Wicket.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Well, don't go anywhere on Around the Wicket, because one of those former grumpy captains, that's what Maxie said, not me, Michael Clarke, is up next, and we're going to get his thoughts on some very interesting comments from David Warner on Sandpapergate. The former captains continue on Around the Wicket. Michael Clarke joins us now. Pup, great to have your company. We're midway through the T20 World Cup, and David Warner has done a very David Warner thing. He's come out and spoken about Sandpapergate in his last tournament for Australia. He says he will always be remembered for Sandpapergate, and that he feels he's the only one who has copped it. The timing of these quotes, what do you make of it?
Look, I understand where Davey's coming from. I think parts of what he said are fair enough. I don't think he's got the timing right. I don't think it's fair to say that he's the only one that's copped it. I think Cameron Bancroft's, certainly copped it, and there's still talk about is the reason he's not in the Australian Test team because of what happened years ago. Steve Smith obviously copped it and lost the Australian captaincy. Davey has certainly copped it. There's no doubt about it. I just think the timing's probably not right. I think this probably would have been better suited for at the end of a World Cup rather than in the middle of a World Cup, because it probably, there's probably other players in the team that would prefer for this not to be spoken about right now. But look, there's parts of what he says is correct. I think the other thing as well is when you're playing and you're in that bubble, you probably take everything personally, and you probably worry so much about what everyone says and thinks. And Davey's been in that bubble for a long time now, playing for Australia. I think in time, when he retires and when he walks away from the game, like a lot of us, you don't take stuff as personally. Time heals all. I think he will definitely be remembered for how great a cricketer he has been, and he's been an amazing entertainer. Unfortunately for him, yes, it probably will be spoken about bits and pieces, in 10, 20 years' time, but I think how good a cricketer he has been will be spoken about as well.
Fair to say it shocked you?
Yeah, it did. And like Pup said, purely for the timing. And I just felt as though he's someone who can start to talk about a topic and then continue to just keep going. So
he does love to chat.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just the timing. I thought that was a little bit odd.
Pup, we move on to the Super 8s, and first up for Australia it is Bangladesh. Clearly they're not as strong as the other teams in this phase, but do they pose a bit of a threat for the Aussies straight up, do you think?
I think if you make the top 8, you look at the teams, I think spin bowling will play a part, how you bowl it, how you face it. And T20 cricket is everyone closer together. I think we've seen that. So I think the Aussies, and Mitch Marsh, he said it pretty well. He said, look, this is a new tournament now. The way we look at it, the way we play, our attitude, I think they'll go back to working out what their full strength 11 is, and we'll pick that. Whether it's against Bangladesh or India, I don't think there'll be that give guys a go now. I think you'll see Australia really turn it on and get back to playing their best cricket. Now everyone's had a bit of a chance to get some cricket under their belt. But yeah, you take no one lightly. I think we've already seen that throughout the tournament. The fact that the USA's, made the Super 8s, I think that's a good example that you got to make sure you switch on every game and be at your best.
India is a huge threat, obviously. The top 2 teams of every group advance. What is it about India that is going to really threaten the Aussies, do you think, Finchy?
I think the ability for them to play a number of different combinations with the side. They've got the ability to play 3 spinners if they want. They've got Hardik Pandya there as an all-rounder as well. So it's going to be spin threat. You knew at the start of the tournament, when you look at the venues for the tournament, spinning wickets, St Vincent, Antigua, St Lucia, they're all spinning wickets. So that'll be Australia's biggest challenge, particularly against India.
On tough pitches, but Virat Kohli, after a stunning IPL, has only managed 5 runs across 3 innings so far, opening for India, which is an unusual for him in the men in blue side of things. Do you think they should continue with him opening alongside Rohit Sharma, Pup?
I think if they feel that's their best 11, then keep him there. Look, he's been playing on a pitch that's been tough for the opening batters as well. So I don't think 3 low scores makes any difference for Virat. If India feels it's their best 11 by him opening the batting, because there's a lot of talk throughout the IPL that Virat was going to bat 3 in this Indian team, but they've gone with him at the top of the order where he bats in the IPL and had a great IPL. So you can understand their reason for doing that. I wouldn't be too concerned about 3 low scores. All that means to me is he's one step closer to making a big one. And it's the most important stage as well, where the best players, this is where they generally stand up.
I love the smile on your face while you're saying that. We all love watching King Kohli pile on the runs in a big stage.
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot here, can you predict the semi-finalists, so the top 2 of each group, Pup?
Australia, India. I don't know. There's something about England now. Now that they've qualified, I think I'm going to go England, West Indies.
Okay, what are you going with, Finchy?
I'm going Australia, India, England and South Africa. I think with England there, I think they can win it. And that's what's so scary about them. They haven't played their best cricket. Jofra Archer's back and their bowling attack looks totally different when he's there. So they're a huge threat.
And we often see in these World Cups, it's something like a Scotland not quite sneaking through that ends up being the moment that gets them the win in the end. Michael Clarke, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it, as always. We don't go anywhere because Tim Paine is up next. We're going to ask him about that relationship between Australia and England. Has it ever been worse than it's been over the last month or year and a half?
If we can get them out of the tournament, that's in our best interest as well as probably everyone else.
I think when you go out and play, you're trying your best every time. And if you're not, then that's probably against the spirit of, of cricket or whatever. So,
a throwaway line's been blown right out of proportion by you lot. So, you don't stuff around with mother cricket. And
it's us lot that have been doing it. In fact, it started with Tim Paine on this very show that Australia should try to lose to Scotland in order to knock England out of the T20 World Cup. The big question is, was Hazlewood joshing? Tim Paine, what have you made of this whole saga since you lit the fire?
Well, firstly, Neroli, I'll set the record straight. I didn't say we should lose. I said if the opportunity presents itself, we can chase a total in a certain amount of overs. That's what we should be looking to do. However, Pat Cummins is spot on. You never go out and try and lose a game of cricket, and I was really clear on that from the start. If the opportunity
presented, you said that all of the teams should go on holidays.
That was tongue-in-cheek, and we should play George Bailey and we should play Andrew Dodd. That was a joke. If you weren't aware of that, then you need to
You
have
said
a
I'm
little bit of a look
half
at your own
joking.
self there,
I'm
Neroli.
half joking, Neroli, is what you said.
I was joking about trying to lose. They should try and win the game, but at one stage there might have been a way you could win the game, chase them in 8 or 9 overs, and England would be gone. Now, if that was the case, I think they would have taken it. I think Pat's right. Never go into a game of cricket playing at any level trying to lose it. That's not what we were talking about. And then you go to Josh Hazlewood's comments, who I think was the most honest. Straight after a game, he's been hit with a question. He's had no time to be coached through it, if you like. And then post that, you had Pat's comments and Mitch's comments when clearly they've been spoken to around manipulating games and all that sort of stuff. But I thought Josh was off the cuff, honest, and certainly had the opportunity presented itself in front of them, they would have taken it. They certainly would have spoken about it.
You know that Paine's annoyed with me when he goes with Neroli instead of Nez. Finchy, when you were watching that game, what were you thinking? There were drop catches. It was an unusual game, and given the comments ahead of it.
Yeah, it just looked like they weren't switched on from the start. I was out on the ground just looking around the wicket and everything, and it had an energy of almost like a practice game to some point, and you can be uncharacteristically sloppy when that happens. I mean, 3 drop catches in 3 balls, 4th one was caught, but 6 drop catches overall. It was a poor performance in the field, and then with the bat, it wasn't the easiest wicket. It come on nicely with a brand new ball, but then Scotland also bowled very well at the top, so credit to them, but yeah, Australia was still too good.
Paine, a byproduct of this is the relationship between England and Australia, which, fair to say, has been pretty heated over the last 18 months. Talk of Bazball, moral victories, the Kerry Bairstow incident. There's been a lot of chat, and it bled into last year's One Day World Cup, and now we're seeing it at this T20 World Cup with Matthew Mott, who is an Australian, but the coach of England. Has it ever been worse, do you think, the relations between England and Australia, and is it good or bad for the game?
Oh, I think it would have been. It hasn't been the last couple of years. It's been hundreds of years of rivalry, hasn't it? I mean, and it's great. It's great for the game. It's great for our Ashes rivalries. And when Australia play England, it's always heightened senses around anything that's been said. And yeah, I think it's only going to get more and more. I don't think the relationships are worse now because I think the players actually know each other a lot better. There's IPLs, there's other competitions where they're actually playing in each other's teams. But what's been great is that there is I think there's always been respect, but it is a heated rivalry. We want to beat them. They want to beat us. That's why the Ashes rivalry, Australia versus England, is so special to watch and to play in.
Brendan McCullum said after the Ashes we didn't want to have a beer with them, and they didn't have a beer with them. What do you think? Has it been as bad as it is right now?
Oh, probably not. And there's so much more coverage on it now, and there's social media and everything. So in that regard, it probably feels like it is right now. But like Paine said, this is 150 years. All coming together.
We need to move on to America. The Major League Cricket has attracted some of the biggest names in the game in Australia. And in fact, now it's unfolding that you've got the likes of the Aussie skipper in red ball cricket, Pat Cummins, who's going to be playing in the MLC, but he doesn't play in the Big Bash. What does CA need to do to fix this? Because it seems a little unusual to not have the best players in your own domestic competition.
Yeah, but it all comes down to availability, doesn't it? And I mean, Pat's a classic example. He plays so much cricket in the Australian summer when the Big Bash is going that he's just not available to play for the Sydney Thunder. He has played in it before, and I'm sure if it fits for him and his preparation for playing for Australia, that he'd love to play Big Bash cricket and help grow the game here in Australia. But in terms of guys going around the world, playing in the IPL, playing now in the American League, I think it's fantastic for players that we have all of these options now. And I think going forward, then Cricket Australia and the other bodies around the world are going to have to come up with something to make sure that your best players can be available for your biggest domestic product. But how that's going to be done is anyone's guess. And for people smarter than you, I and Finchy to be sitting around and trying to get that schedule right is a nightmare. And I wish them all the best.
Speak for yourself, thanks, Paine. When you see that list of that talent, it's not a great look, is it? No,
and I think that there has to be some give and take for Cricket Australia and designing the schedule to allow the best players in the world to play. And I think that's where Australia's probably dropped the ball a little bit and got complacent with the Big Bash. I think when it first started, everybody wanted to be involved in the Big Bash. It's almost like it's not the big priority it used to be anymore, and I think the product's suffering for it.
Tim Paine, thank you as always. You didn't light any fires today, I don't think, but Glenn Maxwell did say you were grumpy and Pup was grumpy, so, you got a little bit of a drive-by before you even came on the show.
Oh, why didn't I get shown that? I can retort.
Tim Paine, thanks so much. We'll chat to you over the next couple of weeks. Don't go anywhere and Around the Wicket because Aaron Finch is going to take on the short stuff next. It's time to take on the short stuff with Aaron Finch. Pakistan out of the competition. Should Babar Azam remain captain?
There seems to be a lot of internal turmoil with the Pakistan side at the moment. Even from afar, Shahid Afridi, he comes out, who's the father-in-law of Shaheen Shah Afridi, who was replaced as captain. He comes out and says, I'll tell everything at the end of the World Cup. So I think it's going to be hard for Babar to remain in the job.
Lockie Ferguson, astonishing figures. 4 maidens, 3 wickets. Have you ever seen anything like it?
Nothing like that. I think it's the second time it's happened in T20 cricket, but that is just ridiculous. He's a good bowler. I'm not sure he's that good that nobody can actually hit him.
How big a story is the USA making the Super 8s?
Huge, and that's what having a 20-team tournament is all about. It's about the associate nations having the opportunity to take on the big test-playing nations, and they've come out on top. They've played great cricket right throughout.
Do you think they can get a foothold here in the States?
I hope so. It's a really big part of it was bringing it to New York, and I mean they've done a magnificent effort, and I think it's going to get big.
England beat Oman in 19 balls, 1-9.
That's quick. That's very quick.
Quicker than Lockie Ferguson.
Yeah.
What's the worst loss you've ever suffered, even if it's junior cricket?
Oh, I think there was a game we got bowled out for under 30 in junior cricket, but I mean 19 balls. I was at the game. Phil Salt hit the first 2 balls of the innings for 6, and it was like, right, this is really happening.
Commentators always say short game's a good game.
Exactly right.
Could England win the whole thing now that they've snuck through?
Absolutely. I think the fact that Jofra Archer's back in the side, Mark Wood as well, bowling fast. So, I mean, any chance that you get to see express pace, that adds up to a really good bowling attack. Great batting lineup, very dangerous.
Aaron Finch, you've been a superstar on Around the Wicket here in New York. I've got to wrap up by saying, though, happy 70th to my dad. Happy birthday, Doc.
Happy
I
birthday.
love you. See you guys. See you next week.